Hello everybody, my name is Tim and welcome back to Big on the Inside, a New Who, Doctor Who Watch Along podcast. Now, you can probably tell this isn't going to be a normal episode to start with. You're still going to get your watch along. We're doing Doomsday. It is the last episode of Series 2. We're going to be back next week with our ranking of Series 2. We've already done that with Series 1, so you can go and check that out. Now, the reason there is no news this week is because of recent events that have happened during this week, ending the 14th of March 2021. I just felt that there's two ways I suppose you could look at this. You could look at this either as you want to be distracted from the grimness of real world by Doctor Who, which is totally understandable, but I also feel that it really needs to be embraced, and we need to start looking at how to treat women better in public, and how it's tricky, and this isn't really the platform to talk about this, I guess, but I just felt uncomfortable talking about Mark Gatiss when there is proper serious news going on this week. We will be back next week. The watch along is about to come on next, and I just hope that you all enjoyed the watch along. So thank you for understanding, thank you for listening, and enjoy the rest of the show. Doomsday, we're talking about Doomsday. It's the end of Series 2. For some reason, I don't know about you, but it feels like Series 2 went by a lot quicker than Series 1.
Yeah, I know what you mean. The pacing was much, much faster. Maybe it's because there were... I was going to say because there were 3 two-parters, but there were 3 two-parters in Series 1, weren't there?
There was, yes, I'm going to try and remember them. There was the Empty Child. There was the final, and what was the other one?
Aliens of London and World War 3.
Oh yeah, so yeah, 3 two-parters, yeah.
The reason that I can think for Series 2 going by faster was that it was kind of divvied up a bit more. You kind of had the first few episodes with Doctor and Rose, then some with Mickey, then some without Mickey, then Love and Monsters broke up again, and then there was the end. So maybe because of it being much more kind of segmented like that, rather than being one big overarching thing, meant it felt like it went a bit faster.
Yeah, perhaps. So the episode starts with a pre-title sequence like we saw last week, with Rose standing on a beach talking about that this is the fact that she's gonna die.
She's really definitely gonna die for realsies this time.
For real, she's going to die. Well, we'll get into that, because I do want to talk about the fact that does she die, doesn't she die, sort of thing. But the actual start of the episode after the opening titles is Rose standing up to the Daleks that have come out of the Genesis Ark. And compared to when she first saw them, she is, I don't know, we sort of saw this throughout Series 2 as well, she's becoming more and more like the Doctor.
Yeah, that scene in particular, where she was kind of acting very confidently about them, kind of saying, "Oh, I'm a human, but I know what Daleks are. How could that be?" That was a very kind of doctory way of handling the situation.
Yeah, it was good. I did like it. I think it's also maybe a really good indication that her time with the Doctor is coming to an end, because if we skip forward 2 seasons to the end of Series 4, when Donna literally becomes the Doctor, that's when he knows it's time to get rid of her as well, because no human can possibly properly understand and equalise what the Doctor actually thinks and experiences. It just doesn't work on a human level.
Yeah, and it's kind of, in a way, it's kind of, even though Rose didn't want to leave the Doctor, the fact that she's become so much like the Doctor kind of suggests almost that she's outgrown him and doesn't need him in the way she thinks she does. Because you kind of see a similar kind of growth with Martha in the next series, that she kind of becomes much more independent, and then by the end she's like, don't need this anymore.
Oh yeah, definitely, yeah. I like the fact that the Daleks' reaction to Rose is just shut up, just answer our questions. But as soon as she mentions the Doctor's name, like, they step back. I
That's
thought that
fun.
was a great inclusion.
I really like that, because obviously it's really admirable how they managed to get so much kind of character out of these, big dustbins on wheels, to put it bluntly.
Yeah.
But kind of the little touches, such as them just moving back a little bit, it adds so much. You can totally read
Yeah,
them.
I noticed as well that whilst they're talking, their bodies are moving, which I don't think is something that they do anymore.
Did they not? But yeah, I guess so. Because
I'm just
thinking
trying to.
about the only scene I can think of immediately in say Revolution of the Daleks, was it called Revolution or Revelation?
I
The
don't
new
know.
one. But like the most recent one, the Christmas of 2020, the New Year's of 2021 special, there was that confrontation between the two sets of Daleks on the bridge. And yeah, they
Yeah.
pretty much just stood there. Although maybe that's comparable to the way that the Cybermen and the Daleks interacted in this scene, in this
Yeah,
episode.
the bitch fight of Canary Wharf.
Have you seen that video as well?
We could talk about that. I was surprised that these two foes didn't know who each other were at first. It took some sort of analysing of each other to work out who they were.
I mean, I guess, I mean, I've not watched Classic Who, but it's surprising that throughout all of Classic Who, they never had a crossover story, that Russell was the first to do that.
Yeah, I know in Confidential they were like, that's something that they were surprised ever been done. And I think up to that point, a lot of people probably did think it had been done.
It's kind of a thing where you just assume it had been done. The two of the most iconic villains in the series, of course they've met.
Yeah, exactly. It's almost like a Batman versus Superman thing. You think, well, of course they've met at some point, and outside the Snyder films they did in comic books and TV animation. But that I don't believe that ever really happened with the Daleks.
Why
Because
was
it
that?
was
Was
just
it?
Doctor Who. There was the novelizations and the audio dramas, of course, but it
I'm
was
try-
mainly just the show.
Was there like something to do with like a licensing thing? Maybe like back in the day, did the Terry Nation or his estate kind of say if there's a Dalek story, it's just a Dalek story? I don't know.
I generally have no idea. I just think maybe just didn't do it. I think that's it. I just don't think they ever got around to doing it. I don't think there's a political issue around it.
Yeah, perhaps not.
There's a really good scene in this, and I noticed it a lot throughout these first two seasons, is that Russell does a really good job of showing how the world outside of the Doctor is affected.
Absolutely.
So my example for that would be when the Cybermen are taking over the streets, there's a shot of like a family sat around a telly all holding onto each other, and there's like Cybermen in the living room, there's Cybermen coming down the stairs in the streets. It really sort of humanizes it, and I think that's something that perhaps has been lacking since he left, is that there is life and world outside of the Doctor, but it's never really shown that much as it is in Russell's era.
Yeah, I mean, this is something which I'm going to step outside of Doctor Who and kind of talk about kind of popular media as a whole. But I feel very often, like, say, if you look at something like a Marvel movie, when there's some kind of like huge foe with like planet or universe threatening stakes, very often for me, I feel like you don't get enough of a sense of how just kind of your regular person on the street feels about it, because it's always so focused on these larger than life heroes and villains. But something that, like you said, Russell does really well is when there's like an attack on a global scale, it does kind of pull back and hone in on kind of just regular people and how they're experiencing this.
Yeah, I suppose that's maybe why we liked Aliens of London and World War Three so much.
And
It's
why
just
we
because
like
I know that. Go on.
and why we like Clever Monsters so much, because that is a whole story just about your regular average Joe and how he
100%.
experiences. Yeah.
Going back to the actual, story of the episode, when that guy from Torchwood gets, I've got to be careful how I phrase this, when he gets sucked to death by the Daleks, why didn't he just kneel a bit more and get out of the way?
I guess maybe he was paralyzed with fear. I mean,
Have
I
you
imagine
noticed that when rewatching it, you've sort of gone, why haven't they just done that? You start questioning stuff that you wouldn't necessarily have questioned when you first watched it.
Yeah, because that's not something I questioned when I first watched it. I guess kind of
No.
it's a suspension of disbelief thing. I mean, I assume that the Daleks could have very easily redirected their suckers to wherever he moved to.
Yeah, that's true. Oh, I've forgotten to say. Where, like, what? just over 2 seasons in, and it's been the ongoing thing for 2 seasons. But this is the episode that I first saw. This is my very first episode.
Really? So the first episode
Yeah.
you saw was the one where the companion left.
Yeah, this was the first episode of Doctor Who I ever saw.
Okay, so I'm gonna have to ask you when we get to it. I'll ask you about it.
All right, okay. We'll save that to the end because I would quite like to talk about that because I think it's quite fun to look back on. We're going back a bit to the bitch fight of Canary Wharf. You would destroy the Cybermen with only 4 Daleks. I love that line because it's just like, it's almost like the Cyberman's going, "What are you talking about?"
Well, it's kind of these are two, cyborg races that have been like built and kind of brainwashed into believing that they are the greatest species in the whole universe. So for them to kind of encounter another species that believes, actually, no, we're the greatest, and just how they deal with that is very entertaining. Very entertaining.
This episode is entertaining, and it's, last week we had Mickey return. This week, Jake, who when he arrived, I was quite excited to see him. I thought it was quite a fun inclusion because he's sort of a character that was quite important in those 2 episodes. You then kind of just forgotten about him. And then when Andrew Hayden Smith returns in this episode, it's kind of cool to see him again, don't you think?
Yeah, it's great. It's great to kind of see him back, and it's kind of... There was a real kind of sense of kind of camaraderie and kind of a team in that episode, and for that to kind of come back, it adds a good energy to the whole kind of mix.
Yeah, I would love to see a Big Finish audio story set on Parallel Earth with just Mickey and Jake going around in a big blue van. I'm not sure if I mentioned it when we did Age of Steel, Rise of the Cybermen, but I would love to listen to that. That'd be great fun.
I don't know how much Big Finish stuff there is on Parallel Earth. I know there's definitely stories about Rose and perhaps Jackie.
Yeah. And perhaps what? Sorry, Torchwood? Yeah, I think there is.
Oh, I said perhaps Jackie.
Oh, yeah, there's a couple I've listened to one. There's a few short stories they do. Flight into Hull, which you can listen to. By the time this episode goes out, it'll be out. Me and Harrison did a Big Finish Battles, our 3rd one, and you can listen to that. And I did Flight into Hull.
Oh, cool. How do they represent Hull well in that story?
It's a parallel Earth Hull, so it's much better than the one that we currently live in.
Yikes. We have the Deep. We have the bonus arena. Before lockdown, there was some good stuff going on at the bonus arena.
Yeah, you could go see Paul, what is it called? Jacqueline Abbott and Paul from the House Martins.
I mean, the House Martins are great. And
the House Martins are great.
and they had League of Gentlemen, and is he called Jack White from the White Stripes?
Possibly. You tell me.
Yeah, and they had George Ezra. George Ezra was there.
Oh yeah, he was like the first one.
Yeah, like George Ezra, he's a pretty big deal.
Yeah, I guess. I'm not that. I think I've been once to the bonus arena in Hull.
Never.
I saw Jurassic Park live.
Oh, cool! Like in concert.
Yeah, in concert, not like dinosaurs.
I nearly went once. I nearly went to see League of Gentlemen, but I think it was just a little too pricey for me.
Yeah, some of the stuff is. Anyway, we're talking too much about our local culture. Quick question, Harry, Daleks or Cybermen, which is your favourite?
I personally prefer the Daleks. I think there are some rare instances where I feel like there's more potential for the Cybermen, but generally I just enjoy the Daleks more. I love the Nick Briggs voice with the Daleks. Now I think about it, a lot of this episode is just Nick Briggs talking with himself, isn't it?
It is. I watched a thing on The Confidential where he was like, "Oh, I'm happy to be back," and I was like, "There wasn't really a choice, was there, Nick? It's not like they're gonna well, they could recast, but like, what do you mean you're happy to be back?" He was "It's not taking long to get back into the voice of the Daleks." So like, you do it like every week on Big Finish.
I suppose, but by that point, Nick Briggs had only done the Daleks for one series. For all he knew, they could have considered recasting him. I mean, obviously
He
now
was
by this
already
point,
doing it on Big Finish. He was already doing Big Finish stuff at this point.
that's true. And of course, did he do the Daleks in Curse of Fatal Death?
I don't know. Maybe he did. I'm not sure.
I think so.
We'll have a look
I
at
think
that when
so.
we eventually get around to doing that.
Yeah.
Let's talk about the parallel Earth that they go to. Compared to the Pete Tyler that we see in Father's Day, this Pete Tyler's a bit of a dick, wouldn't you say?
He is, yeah, like the way that he acts about Rose. I mean, I guess he kind of insinuated that's how he felt about Rose. Kind of, he very much kind of, rejected her in those stories. But here, the fact he's like saying that stuff, like to Jackie, is quite shocking. I mean, I'm guessing that kind of because he swoops in and saves her at the end. I'm guessing Jackie probably like had a proper word with him and he had a change of heart.
Yeah, but then again, she didn't really want to go, and Jackie could have quite easily have been left on Earth, just not inside the building, and she would have been fine.
Well, you say that, but Jackie didn't have any of the void stuff on her, so she wouldn't have even been in danger of being sucked in.
Yeah, you're right, actually. Yeah, so, she might have been stuck on Earth on her own without Rose. Actually, yeah, maybe it was a good choice for her to go, actually.
I mean, if, Pete and Mickey are in parallel Earth.
If Rose was going to the end a little bit, if Rose hadn't have been saved by Pete and just gone into the void, would she have been able to have been saved from the void? Or would she died instantly?
Well, considering that the void was filled with millions of Cybermen and Daleks, I imagine she wouldn't have lasted very long.
Yeah, that's true. I didn't think of that. There's a really good line in this where the Doctor is just antagonising Pete, and he says, "Pete Tyler, I knew you when you were dead."
That's cold. Imagine like someone from another world like came to you and like, in your world you're dead.
Yeah. It's not that you weren't even born, you were born and then died.
I second, Pete didn't just. I just remember that Pete's original plan before the Doctor suggested the Void was that he wanted to just get all the Cybermen in our Earth, or kind of the Earth that the Doctor and Rose were from, and just leave them there to kill everyone there. He didn't care about that Earth. He just cared about getting them out of his Earth. Yeah.
He was a bit of a dick, wasn't he?
He was a total dick.
He's like, I'm just going to pollute this Earth. Because, yeah, there's a point where he's like, this Earth's going to burn to the ground. I'm going to go. He's like, and then the whole thing of forcing Jackie to come with him. And then her response of, I've been without you for so many years now. I don't need you. It's great.
Yeah, that was great.
We'll get into their reunion in a second. I love seeing the Doctor and Mickey back together. They have a really good bromance, I feel, compared to the Doctor and Mickey and Nine, sorry.
Now that Mickey is just totally over Rose, it's just very cool for him to kind of have this new respect for the Doctor. And obviously the 10th Doctor has a lot of respect for Mickey.
Yeah. Another cool scene in this that I like is when the Doctor uses the Sonic to blow the doors open, and you see Jake and a Cyberman come in with a massive gun and just start ripping fire on these Daleks.
Were they coming in from different entrances?
The Doctor blew the doors off, didn't he? And then they came in. Yeah,
but like I'm guessing that the parallel Earth humans and the Cybermen weren't coming in together because they'd have killed each other before that would happen.
Well, they came in and both started firing on the Daleks. I don't know.
So are they both just kind of, waiting outside those doors together? Wouldn't they have been trying to kill each other?
Well, just like, you got much on after this? Just kind of talking.
Do you have any plans after destroying Earth?
Yeah. What route do you take? The music in this episode, we haven't talked about the music enough, but it's quite hard to describe music. But the effect it has on this episode in general is amazing.
I mean, I feel like the reason we don't talk about it is that it just almost goes without saying that Murray Gold is an excellent TV composer and an especially excellent composer for Doctor Who. But he always knows when to bring in those right motifs, when to add the right amount of energy, when to be quiet. It's kind of pitch perfect.
You like that film, don't you?
Na- have I ever spoken about Pitch Perfect?
You are now.
I saw the last 10 minutes of it on TV once.
Jackie and Pete, their reunion, I found that more emotional than I did what is to come later in the episode.
Yeah, I kind of know what you mean. There was a real kind of catharsis to it because I feel like it's something kind of beyond the possibilities of the real world, but it's something that people, I'm sure there are lots of people who've kind of fantasized or dreamed about it, kind of the chance to reunite with a long lost loved one. Like, even after you've kind of moved on from them, people you really love, you would probably give anything, cross worlds to see them again.
Oh, 100%. And I think it's just great, like, the thing of pretending not to be into each other. And, if we do this, it's going to be such a mind bend, we can't possibly do it. But then the fact that they just give in and they're like,
Yeah.
oh, screw this, and just run to each other, I think it's great.
I love kind of Jackie's bit where she's like, where Pete says he's rich, and she's like, I don't care. How rich? Very rich.
Yeah. There's another really good bit in that as well that I missed, and it's Jackie, she says, there wasn't anybody else after you, and it just cuts to the Doctor and Mickey putting like this face when they're like, yeah, right.
I didn't notice that.
Yeah, you
I love the bit.
It's fantastic.
I love the bit where kind of the Doctor is trying to explain to Jackie what's going on. She's just like, all right, leave it. Like, this is not the time or the place for your jargon.
Yes. Yeah. And the way he just walks back, yeah, that's fantastic. Skipping on to the episode a bit where we see into the Genesis arc, I like the fact that David Tennant gives our podcast a little shout out when he says it's bigger on the inside. That was very kind of him. It was
yeah.
But, it's nice to be
Yeah,
recognised.
I did one of those. I did one of those Leonardo DiCaprio putting at the TV screen moments.
Oh, yeah. Daleks in the Sky, we saw it in whatever the most recent special was, but when they're in formation flying in packs in the sky, I think it always looks amazing.
Do you like the kind of Dalek flight thing? Because obviously it's something that I know is introduced in Classic Who, but it's kind of more of a thing that's really been used in New Who. You there, Tim?
I can't hear Harry.
Tim?
But no doubt Harry can hear me, and he's talking, and I'll forget to edit this out, so I'm going to quickly
this has happened again. This happens every time.
Call him back.
Well, here he is
You'll
again.
be able to hear all of this from both our sides. Is this Harry Murdoch speaking?
This happens every time we do it on Facebook.
Sorry, yeah.
Next
carry
time
on with whatever you were saying.
You really are going to have to edit this one out. Can't become a recurring theme.
Fine.
Well, next time I'm going to do it on my desktop, so instead of my phone. Hopefully that will prevent this.
Okay.
But basically what I was saying was that how do you feel about... do you feel like it's kind of a good addition? Because I know there are some people who the Dalek flight formation feel that it looks a bit odd because it's not really a design built for flight, especially kind of whizzing through the air like that.
I suppose it's suspension of disbelief. I could believe that the Daleks fly more than I can believe how Peter Quill flew at the end of Avengers Endgame.
I don't even remember that.
Okay, so in the big battle where Captain America says Avengers Assemble and they all charge.
Oh,
and
yeah.
There's a side angle of the profile of all the heroes flying and all the monsters running towards each other.
Yeah.
There's a shot of Peter Quill flying, and he's laid vertically with like rocket boosters coming out the soles of his feet.
Oh, yeah. Does he have
And
them
I
in
was
his
like, well, how
hands
does that
as well?
How does that make him fly?
We're talking about Marvel a lot this episode. What is this? Podcasters Assemble, the Marvel podcast?
I'll have a look at some Marvel podcasts so we can laugh at their names later on as well.
Tim, we're called Bigger on the Inside. It's an awful name.
There's a really cool bit in this that I think the 10th Doctor does a lot. He just makes things sound very illiterate, like via the void. Via the void. It's a great, fun thing to say.
Yeah. The 10th Doctor really likes the sound of his own voice, doesn't he?
He does, doesn't he? He does.
Yeah, he's there. I mean, there are a lot of I think pretty much every Doctor loves themselves just a little bit too much, or has moments where they love themselves a bit too much.
Yeah,
But I
when
feel
they
like,
sort of realise they are the genius.
but I feel like that level of confidence is kind of what makes them so appealing.
There's a scene, obviously, we're now getting towards the end of the episode, the scene where the Doctor sort of tells Rose that she's going, and she doesn't really have a say in it, and that she's now going to go and live life on this parallel Earth and leave everything she knows behind.
Yeah.
And she's like questioning him, and he's just going, "Yep, yep,
I
yep,
guess-
okay," and he's just like hiding his emotions from it. I think it's brilliant.
No, it's great that he kind of goes. It's a similar thing to what the Ninth Doctor did a lot of the time, where he went to just a very chipper, emotion, jovial but disconnected place to kind of make it hurt less for themselves.
Yeah, but then he's equally as pissed off when she arrives, when she gets back.
You always say that, but he's very quick to just accept it. He doesn't try to send her back or anything. He's just like, all right. And I don't know whether that's a mix. That's probably a mixture of him realizing that no matter what he does, Rose isn't gonna stand down, and that he probably doesn't really want her to go himself.
Yeah. So let's get into the actual famous moment of the episode where Rose is trying to pull the lever back to open the void, and she loses grip and is sucked away into the parallel Earth where she is caught by Pete Tyler. And I must just say, when she is caught by Pete and she gives that last look to the Doctor, that killed me. It was like that last look of... I don't know what it was. I think it's Billy's acting of just... There was so much emotion in that one look of... She was saying goodbye. There was, help me, I don't want to go. No pun intended. There was so much going on in that one frame. It's just fantastic.
The bit of me which works really well is just David Tennant's scream when she just finally lets go. Like that just...
Yeah.
Pure just desperation screaming out for her.
Yeah, I'm surprised. I'm maybe going too much into this. Because this is a season finale and Billy was leaving, she had to disappear. If this was a regular episode of Doctor Who, do you think he would have let go and gone with her? And then once he was in the parallel world, found a way to get back to his real world?
Well, the thing is, like, she was... That's a question. Because obviously, in The Impossible Planet, he's talking about, the possibility of him and Rose, without a TARDIS, just having to live in a house.
Yeah.
So yeah, maybe the fact that he didn't kind of instinctively let go for Rose, I don't know, that is a question, because I mean, I'm sure there's a lot of kind of fan theories of alternate, what if the Doctor let go as well and went after Rose?
Yeah. But then again, he wanted her to go anyway because he put a manipulator thing on her and sent her back.
But he didn't know when she was being sucked away that Pete was going to appear and take her to the parallel world. For all he knew, she was going to...
Oh, yeah, that's true, yeah.
Yeah, she was going to be sucked in and
there.
die. So maybe the Doctor kind of knew that... I mean, I don't know if the 10th Doctor is big-headed enough to believe this, but maybe he thought kind of like his life was too valuable for him to get sucked into a void where he was killed by Daleks and Cybermen.
Yeah, no, I know what you mean, yeah. Obviously, then we go to the parallel Earth where they say their final goodbyes. I think that scene is amazing, and I think it's only one of a handful, if not the only, screenshot of Doctor Who that a lot of people know. That shot of David and Billy just standing on the beach facing each other. There is no context to that it's Doctor Who. There's no aliens, there's no TARDIS, there's nothing. But a lot of people know what that image is. I'm
sure that there was a poll or something somewhere that voted that as one of, if not the best scene in Doctor Who. Is that something you'd feel inclined to agree with?
It depends what the options were. I have a lot of... I don't know.
Well, of every
Maybe.
scene
Yeah,
in all of Doctor Who. It is a good scene. It's a very effective scene. Yeah. And it's a scene which you saw as your first introduction to Doctor Who.
Yes.
So back when you
okay, so we'll talk. I just want to talk about the fact before we get into that. The fact that the 10th Doctor is denied the chance to tell Rose that he loves her. When I watched this as a kid after rewatching the series, it was only maybe until about 2 years ago that I really caught the significance of that. And I was like, oh my god, that is heartbreaking. It's just... Russell does an amazing job of never giving you or teasing a happy ending and giving you a variation of an ending, but it's maybe not the one that you wanted, but it's a good one for the show.
Yeah, it's kind of the start of the 10th Doctor. Really, in a way, this is, for me, the start of the 10th Doctor's journey as a character. Because if you think about kind of his experiences as a whole, it's quite a depressing journey. It's kind of just... He goes through all these companions, meet all these people, and he's always left with this sad reminder at the end that, nope, you're always going to be alone.
Yeah. Okay, so let's talk about it. Let's talk about the fact that this is my first episode of Doctor Who, 8th of July 2006. I can pretty much remember watching it. I remember playing out in the street with two kids who lived down the street, and their dad came to the door and called them in. I was like, where are you going? And they were like, oh, we're going in to watch Doctor Who. It's the last one and Rose is going to die. And I was like, there are too many questions for me to ask. I just need to know what it is. I ran in. I was like, can we watch Doctor Who? And my mum was like, no. She was like, you don't want to watch that. You won't like it. She's like, why do you want to watch that? And I was like, it's the last one. Someone's going to die. And she was like, why do you want to watch it? You've like not watched any of this. And I just remember sitting down watching it. I can't remember seeing the image of the show on telly, but I can remember sitting on the sofa with my mum watching it. I then have vivid memories the next day flicking through a Radio Times magazine and seeing the DVD for the episode with the Cybermen, knowing who the Cybermen were, thinking, oh, I want this. I want to see this story. And then basically from there on in, just endless love for what is the greatest TV show ever.
So did you, like, despite not having any context or prior attachment to those characters, did you still enjoy Doomsday as a kid?
Oh, I must have. I can only imagine I must have. Otherwise, I don't think we would be sat here today. I think I don't know what it was. I think it was the Cybermen that I really liked, and obviously David.
Yeah.
As a kid, I was properly obsessed with the 10th Doctor. Like, my mannerisms were his. I was somebody who just wanted to be the 10th Doctor. Yeah, like, this is slightly corny and maybe too much info. But in like year 5 or whatever, when I had like my first girlfriend and we had I had my first
in
kid,
year 5, like when you were 9.
My only reference point was Doctor Who. Oh yeah, I think I talked about this when we did Girl in the Fireplace. Yeah, and that's all I knew. So I ended up like kissing my first girlfriend, like the 10th Doctor does in that episode. Maybe slightly too formal for a 7-year-old or an 8-year-old, however old I was.
Year 5, you'd have been 9.
Doctor
like.
Who... What was that? Sorry.
You'd have been 9 if it was year 5.
However old I was in 2006.
2006.
Yeah.
Wait,
yeah,
2006? You'd have been like 7.
Yeah, there you go.
What?
And I remember like wearing glasses, like being like I remember going to the opticians, and every time I went to the opticians, I was
look
like, I
for
really
glasses
wanted them
like
to say I
his.
could have glasses because the 10th Doctor wore glasses, and then when they said you need glasses, purposely just picked ones that looked like his because I thought he looked so cool in glasses.
Like
and
the
then guess
rectangle
what? I went to
frames.
school the next day acting like the 10th Doctor, and people were telling me how good my glasses looked. I loved it.
That's insane. Wow. That's a brilliant story. I did not realise how much you loved the 10th Doctor.
Oh man, yeah. And then like a couple of years ago, 3 years ago, when I got to meet David at a convention, it was like the childhood dream. Like my personal hero is Michael J. Fox. And God knows what state I would be in if I met Michael. But when I spoke to David, only briefly, there was a point where I was like, there is nothing I can say to you that isn't going to sound weird.
Yeah.
So I think I was very quickly just like, you having a good day? When did you find out you were coming? Is it nice to see everybody? I wasn't going to be like, I wore glasses because you wore glasses or anything.
To be honest, like, David Tennant has probably met so many fans who would have freaked out way more than you'd have done if you'd let go. I imagine there are people who meet him and cry. You know?
Oh yeah, that I'll be serious with it. There was a possibility where I was like in the queue and I was like, luckily what they do at these conventions, and I really want to do a video where we talk about it, is you line up to have your photo, but it's not like you walk around a corner and they're there. You walk into a room and you're queuing within the room where they are, so you're seeing them as you're queuing. So you very quickly climatise to being in their environment and with them being in the room. So you very quickly get used to it. But I feel like if I was just to walk into a room and he was there, I'd have just freaked out. I wouldn't know what to do. But because you're queuing and you can see how he's interacting with other people, you sort of get a vibe for it.
Yeah, you climatise it. That's cool. Yeah. I mean, I've never been in the same room with like a huge celebrity. Like I've met kind of sort of famous people, like people who have done great work, but who you wouldn't kind of know from just their face or their name.
Yeah.
Nothing close to like David Tennant.
Yeah, I don't know what it was. Do you think I sometimes wonder if I'd maybe watched a different episode. Maybe if I tuned in 3 or 4 weeks before and caught Thea Hair or something like that, would I have been as captivated? Probably not. But there was something about this of robots fighting robots, I think. I've never been a fan of the monsters in Doctor Who as much as I am the robots.
Okay.
So maybe that's what it was.
It was just kind of the perfect introduction for you.
Yeah, just by chance. If I hadn't been playing out that night, like 5 to 7, I would never have seen Doctor Who. Crazy.
Have you played if you were instead playing with that one friend of yours who was really into Star Trek, and you're like, "Mum, can we put Star Trek on?"
Yeah. I was scared to be able to say that. I've completely forgotten. Oh yeah, but I know you, when we spoke about it, you said that your parents sort of told you about this show before it had started, or maybe you sort of had an understanding of it beforehand. Is that right?
Well, if we're sharing these stories, my first introduction to Doctor Who was the New Earth, and if I remember correctly, I remember knowing about the show before I saw it. It was probably a conversation. Like, I don't know if I'm getting these mixed up. I swear that both Star Wars and Doctor Who were introduced to me when I was like in the back of a car. And it was like my parents or my brother explaining it to me. I don't think it was at the same time.
Oh, 1 second, Harry. 1 second. Give me a minute. Someone at my door. 1 moment.
I hope this is edited out.
Oh, yes, please. Thank you very much.
If you want any more, there's like half a cake in the freezer and then 2 slices of.
Oh, that'd be me.
I'll give it Sarah like a quarter of it. It's fucking massive. Have you seen it?
No, I can have it.
Literally.
Tim? Well, I don't know what happened, guys. All I heard was a knock on Tim's door. Tim answering, the voice of someone. I'm assuming housemate of his. Asking something. Tim saying, "Oh yes, please," and then the door closing. I guess Tim's gone off to have an adventure without me. Parting is such sweet sorrow.
See you later. Put my headphones back in. Hello, Harry.
Off having a little adventure, Tim.
Oh yeah, so it's one of my flatmates' birthdays. So they were just going to bring me some cake.
Oh, lovely.
Yeah, so that was nice. Did you keep everybody entertained whilst I was gone?
I was being a little bit melancholy. I was having a 10th Doctor moment.
Oh, was you?
Yeah.
I don't know what you talked about while I was gone. Did you mention more about your experience of being introduced to Doctor Who?
No, because I wanted to tell you, Tim.
Oh, that's very kind. So go on.
Yeah, so I was in the back of the car, I think, and I don't know how it got to the conversation, but I think I must have asked something like, "Why is it called Doctor Who?" And the reason I was given was because no one knows who he is, because his face always changes. And so I knew about regeneration and all that before I saw the show. It's like, so currently it's a guy called David Tennant or something. And yeah, and then of course, before I'd even watched the show, I remember seeing the adverts on telly for all the different action figures, which were like the 10th Doctor, Rose, Slevine, Scissorax, Cassandra. So I kind of had a basic understanding of like, it's a show with aliens and monsters and a guy who travels through time and changes his face sometimes.
Yeah, I don't really know when I started to work out what the show was. I sort of remember a couple of days afterwards. Oh well, no, if it came on a Saturday, maybe it would have been the Tuesday when I saw my dad, and I would have been telling him about this show that I watched, and him telling me about it, and him being like, "Oh, there was people before David Tennant or whatever," and I was like, "Well, who's the first? Who was the first?" And I can remember my dad, bless him, not knowing fully, but he was like, "Oh, I think like the first one had a big hat and a scarf." And I can remember being described Tom Baker and not knowing what he looked like, but going home and drawing a picture of him and then seeing what he looks like, and my picture being like almost bang on to what I was told.
Your dad must have given a really good description.
Yeah. Well, I think it's great. I love thinking back to like when something, because I won't lie, the show is massively, stupidly significant to me. So thinking back to when it just started, I love that. That's great.
Part of me kind of always wishes when we get a new Doctor or a new series that I could go back to kind of when I didn't know about the history of this show and kind of the lineage of Doctors and kind of just see it from outsiders' point of view. Kind of what does this world seem like when it's still kind of shrouded in all this mystery and there's all these questions and all these things we're discovering for the first time? Because there are a lot of people who'll be watching Jodie's run now, and they will be experiencing these things for the first time. They'll be experiencing the TARDIS and Jodie and the Daleks and the Cybermen. And that must be like really exciting for all this stuff to just be discovering it.
Yeah, I think you've got to be the right age as well. I feel like I was just perfectly the right age for this.
I feel like 6, 7.
I feel a little bit older, I would have been like, oh, I'm not sure about this. A little bit younger, I wouldn't have been interested. But there was something about being about 7. Yeah, it would have been 7. That I just fell in love with. Crazy.
But that's the thing, when I was a kid, I watched it from the age of, I guess it was, I watched from New Earth to the first Matt Smith Christmas special, A Christmas Carol. So that was like just 4 or 5 years, really. Well, 4 years that I was actively watching the show as a kid. Like, if I'd got on the boat later, you know, maybe it wouldn't have resonated.
Yeah, perhaps. What's to come next? The Runaway Bride. The clip at the end with Catherine Tate doing the 10th Doctor's What's is great. I'm not sure when this is going to come out yet, when we're going to do our Runaway Bride. There might be a slight gap, I'm not 100% sure. But I am so looking forward to diving into that, because that's just going to be set aside from the continuity of what we've seen in the last 2 seasons with Rose, starting fresh, just being its own story.
I mean, there's something very special about those David Tennant, specifically his Doctor Who Christmas episodes. There's just something about them. So I'm really looking forward to getting into that when we eventually do it. It will be before next Christmas, I presume.
Yeah, it's literally going to be within the next month of people listening to this.
Yeah.
Yeah. Do you think the ending of this, like I said, I found the reunion of Jackie and Pete to be more emotional than the Doctor and Rose separating. Do you think that would have been different if it was still Chris, not David?
That's tough, because I love David. I feel like rewatching this series, my appreciation for David has been renewed a bit. But I really like Chris. And there are a lot of these stories where Chris, you know, some of these stories definitely wouldn't have worked. Like, Girl in the Fireplace would not have worked for the 9th Doctor. But a lot of these stories, Age of Steel and Rise of the Cybermen, Chris could have really worked in that and been really impactful in that. The same can be said for a lot of stories here. I don't know, I feel like I can imagine Chris in kind of some of the scenes in Doomsday and it really working.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like...
Yeah, maybe... I was going to say maybe one day, but nope. Maybe when hell freezes over.
When hell freezes over. When hell freezes over.
I'm semi-conscious of time, so I'll just make this last point that I watched in Confidential was that Russell said he was never tempted to kill Rose off. He said Doctor Who is basically a show about optimism, so you can't just kill her off.
I mean, I think also it's... You really get the vibe that from the way that she's written about and the way that she is written, that Russell T Davies really loves Rose as a character. You can tell he has a real soft spot for her.
Yeah.
Yeah, and another thing which...
Sorry, go on.
This is just another point, kind of going back. I think it's pretty obvious. Russell prefers the Daleks over the Cybermen, doesn't he?
Yeah, they don't come back until David Morrissey, so...
And also the fact that he makes the Daleks so much more powerful than the Cybermen. He clearly has a favourite. Yeah.
Yeah, I think so, yeah. Quiz, let's do the last quiz of Series 2.
You, not me. I hate being patient. Patience is for wimps.
Whoa! It's a quiz!
3 questions as always. Question number 1. When they are driving to the beach in Norway, what is the make of car that Pete Tyler is driving?
Tim, I don't know cars. I've not watched Top Gear for years.
It said, Rose says it. She says, we got in Dad's old...
Oh, is it a Land Rover?
Jeep.
Ah!
How long does Jackie say she has been without Pete Tyler?
Was it 32 years? No, it isn't 32 years. Why do we got lot? No, because she died and Rose is alive. No, it's been 19 years. 19 years.
19 years. Yes, you're right. Yes.
Okay, I don't know where that came from.
The Doctor says he likes a bit of Shiver and Shake, but when asked to pick which one he would be, which one does he pick? Shiver or Shake?
Shake.
Ah, yes. You got 2 out of 3 this week. Well done.
I thought it was Sugar and Shake.
No, it's Shimmer and Shake, I think.
Oh, I misheard.
Well, you got it right anyway, so I wouldn't worry about it.
Yeah. Doesn't matter what the question
Series
is.
2's been great. We'll do our Series 2 review some point.
Yes,
I don't think there's
ranking.
any episode we would need to revisit this time like there was last time, do you think?
No, there was none, unless we want to do an apology for Fear Her by redoing Fear Her, but I feel like we end up with a worse episode if we try to redo Fear Her.
No, we're not going to do that. Recommendations, let's recommend some stuff.
Before I go, I just want to tell you were fantastic.
Have I had a chance to recommend Years and Years yet? No, not Years and Years. It's a Sin.
No, you haven't, but I imagine that if people listening to this, they will have heard us talk about it, but you can recommend it.
I feel like I have to. Just, it's by Russell T Davies. If that's not enough reason, it's funny, it's got lovable characters, it really, really can be gut-wrenching at points. It's just 5 episodes, each one a little under an hour long, not much of a time sink. Me and my family, we binged it in 2 nights. It is great.
Oh, are you
incredible.
binging it? Me and my mum are watching one a week. We're watching it as it goes out on telly.
You're watching it as it goes out.
Terrestrial TV, keeping the dream alive.
We downloaded the episodes onto our TV and watched it that way.
Boo! Killing the industry, Harry.
We're not killing it. That still gives them viewing figures. They have a record of that. They're gonna see, like, it's got so much buzz, especially from young people, and like, oh, it's so good. It's so good. It's not just one of those things where lots of people are watching it because of lockdown. It's one of those things where, like, it deserves the viewership it's getting. It's a great piece of television drama. And it's kind of further proof that
100%.
Russell T Davies is one of the best. Is it Davis or Davies? 'Cause I feel like I've been saying it
Russell
wrong.
T Davies. Davies. It doesn't have a second D.
Oops. But yeah, it's just further evidence that Russell T Davies is one of, if not the best writer in British television working today,
Yeah.
in my opinion.
Oh, definitely. I definitely agree with you. I'm going to recommend... this might sound like a slightly strange thing. I'm not going to recommend a film or a TV show. I'm just going to recommend watching movies. For the last couple of nights, some of you might know if you follow me on Twitter, I started up my own blog and I'm posting stuff on there. So I've been watching like a film every day, only an hour and a half movie, and then write a review about it. And I found like the act of just watching a movie at night, like last thing before I go to bed, just really good fun. Sitting in bed, getting comfy, cup of tea, watching an hour and a half movie. Nothing ever heavy. Like the first movie I watched was Anna and the Apocalypse. You can read my review about that now. And last night I watched Tag with Jeremy Renner and Ed Helms. That was great fun. I think there's something to be said to just turning your phone off and just watching a film. It's great.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, especially... I mean, I know it's kind of odd to say, like, watch this thing on a screen when so many things are vying for our screens, but really, like, sitting down and committing all of your kind of time and energy to one thing like that. I mean, it's the reason we go to, like, the theatre or the cinema, just to kind of shut yourself off from the world around you and just to absorb yourself in a world that someone else has created.
Yeah. Oh, I couldn't agree more. So, yeah, that sort of brings us to the end of Bigger on the Inside Series 2. Series 2 watch along, that is. For the playlist on YouTube, you will still have the Series 2 ranking to come, and possibly I will also put Runaway Bride in Series 2 as well. So keep an eye out for them when they come out. If you're listening to this on iTunes... Oh, I've got to read the stuff out, haven't I? I always forget to do this. Where's my notes? It says here, tell them to subscribe. You can follow us on Twitter at Bigger on the Inside Pod, Instagram Bigger on the Pod, youtube.com/Bigger on the Inside, Acast, shows.acast.com/Bigger on the Inside. On Acast, we've just reached over 1,000 downloads, so that's great. Leave us a 5-star review on iTunes and subscribe whatever platform you're on. But the reviews do really help, so would really appreciate that if you are listening to this on iTunes. So thank you very much for listening, guys. We will be back shortly. Hopefully you won't see too much of a delay. I'm not sure when this goes out, but I think it's around the 12th of April you will start to see more regular uploads from us. So thanks very much. I'll say goodbye. Bye, guys. Harry, do you want to say goodbye?
Well, now's my last chance to say it. Tim Saxby.